Welcome everyone, and thanks very much for coming to this session. Right, so I've shared my screen, but I can't actually, there we are, finding how to use this new system. So thanks very much for coming. And this session, as you can see, is called Connecting Local and National Ideas on Research and Innovation, and it's presented by members of the EU think tank. Those of you who were in the first session will have seen that the think tank was part of the platform of Fit for Food 2030. And I thought it would be useful to share a slide of the members of the think tank, some of whom I believe are online, and 3 of whom will be presenting in this session. So the think tank, the role of the think tank was basically to be a link pin, just a nice word, especially in the systems context in which we have just heard Jacqueline and Barbara explain Fit for Food 2030 is all about. So we're supposed to be a link pin between the member states. So we're feeding back information into the project and to the EC. And we're also being a link pin by taking information, taking some of those ideas from Fit for Food 2030 back into our communities, into our networks. What have we done? We've heard some impressive things about what Fit for Food 2030 has done. Sorry, it's got something saying share my video, and I seem to be sharing my video, but it's obviously not actually showing, so I can't actually change that for now. So let me just talk through these briefs, and then once I get this underway, then I can deal with the technical problems. So the outputs are policy briefs, and 3 are on the screen here, as you can see. And these briefs have been written by the team in the think tank, and we've also had meetings that have had discussions, so we've understood what Fit for Food 2030 is doing. Then we're also working on a final policy brief 4, on governance of research. And the aim of this one will be to highlight the ways of commissioning research to have impact. And the knowledge that we're going to put into this policy brief is a synthesis of lessons learned during the project, the experience of members of the think tank, and also observations of how the research system has reacted to the COVID pandemic. And you can see the definition of governance at the bottom there. So the aim of this panel is to explore key issues relevant to responsible research and innovation. We're going to start at the level of a city, and we're going to move up to a regional level, and then we're going to think about the international level. But just like was explained by Jacqueline and Barbara, this is not a linear process, but very much an iterative process. And this system, the network that is represented by the people on the think tank who are presenting today, is a much bigger part of the food system. We all have roles to play at different parts in terms of that overall big global system that manages food. And so there will be interactions when each panel member will speak for 5 minutes, and then we will have questions. I will ask questions to the panel, and then it will be open for all of you to ask any questions, and please put those in chat if you'd like to ask a question. Okay, so let me rapidly stop sharing and pass over to our first speaker, who is Tim Lang. Over to you, Tim. Sorry, while Tim's getting, can I just introduce Tim? Sorry, I should have said that. Tim is started his career by studying social psychology, has also been a farmer, and is set up the food policy lab at the City University in London, and has been a major voice in developing food policies, certainly in the UK and more widely in Europe. So over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Maggie, and hello, everybody. And this is great. It's been a great honor and the pleasure for me to be part of Fit for Food 2030. Like Maggie, I'm in Brexit land, and this is a terrible place to be, let me tell you. Europe and working with other countries is much better. So I speak with great passion about this. We do not resolve the problems of food by thinking you go on your own, which is what my country is doing at the moment. It's bad politics, bad food policy, bad science. Okay, I feel better having said that. I was asked to think about the city level. In fact, I'm thinking more, I will be more philosophical, if I may, Maggie. I am a member of the London Food Board. I advise the Mayor of London, the present one, a man called Sadiq Khan, and the previous one, a man called Boris Johnson, who is our Prime Minister. And before that, a former Labour leader too. And in that process, I have had the privilege of meeting many cities, seeing what cities do. And I'm a big supporter of thinking about what can cities do about food and food policy. But I have to say, there is very little that cities are currently doing, which is really transforming the food system. I speak as an academic who looks at what the data, the evidence say is needed from the food system, the transition, the transformation that we need to go through, lower carbon, lower embedded water, healthier diets, citizenship, not consumerism, total change in production systems, change of the distribution systems, altering of what is considered a normal diet. These are big changes which the world's cities need to do everywhere, not just in Europe. And against those criteria, cities are not doing well. They have very big footprints, very big energy use. They are parasitic on the rural areas without understanding them sometimes, not always, sometimes. So I'm someone who is very sober about the reality of cities thinking about food fit for 2030. But the good news is the cities are stirring. They are beginning to come alive to this. In 2015, we launched the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, a meeting of 100 cities, world cities, big cities, coming together initially from climate change as a concern, the C40 group of cities, but then becoming something much bigger, commitments to sustainable diets, not just low carbon diets or healthy diets, but better for biodiversity diets. And here I'm at the moment now chairing, Maggie, you don't know this, I am now chairing from last month for the Mayor of London, a new Sustainable Diets Working Party. Because the evidence says that cities are doing interesting work on beginning to map where the food comes from, beginning to map some of the indicators of what we need for the future, but actually are not really changing the consumer mentality, if we are honest. So this conference is about where we, this Fit for Food 2030 project has got to, but looking ahead for 10 years, 20 years. And I have to say to you very soberly, I think we are still in a fantasy that a gentle European normality is okay. It is not. We overconsume, we malconsume, and yet we have growing numbers of people, and COVID-19 shows this, who are under-consuming. We have immense differences by gender, by ethnicity, by income level. In Europe, we tend to think of ourselves as social democratic, working with each other, arguing across the differences, but broadly, we are not America, we are not China, we are not Russia. I think it is time we woke up. We have very, very big problems. And at the city level, I think this is very important. We need to understand the dynamics of the current food system better. Maggie said, I've spent my life, 45 years, working in academia and in European food policy. And we have come a long way. I teach our students on our master's program at my university, where many, many students from all over the world. We teach how the common agricultural policy is now really a common food policy. It's an agri-food policy. Not enough about food, but it's beginning. But it's still not a common health and food policy. Health is a member state responsibility. But here is where I think the cultural element of food is something cities are very powerful to help work on. Cities are about identity. I live in London. I've lived in London longer than anywhere I've lived in the world. I identify with London. I come from the north of England. I lived in India as a child. I've lived all over Britain, but I've lived for 36 years in London, half my life, exactly half my life. The identity element of food, culture, and cities, I think is a level of thinking that we must work on. That is not something the European Commission is ever happy. I know that, I was the first advisor on food policy to the European Environmental Commission, the Environment Commissioner, nearly 30 years ago. There is a deep unhappiness. This is not a zone Europe is happy with. And yet we have cities as a powerful network across Europe. We have regions and city regions as powerful networks. So there is a very interesting, very subtle, soft politics of cities as forces of food change. So I think this is a very positive moment for this project, Maggie, our fourth briefing paper on governance. As you know, I'm very, very supportive of this. I think that level of speaking to the city level of governance is absolutely a priority. Why? I'll make one last point, Maggie. Because here we are, the world, not just Europe, is being altered by COVID-19. The new vaccines that are coming in is good news, but it will not change things in the short term. This will run for some time, and COVID-19 is anyway a big reminder how food is part of the biological system. We humans are insects in a complicated web of life, to use Charles Darwin's phrase, the web of life. And we humans at city level have lost touch with that biological life. So I see a really critical tension at the city level between the social, cultural, and economic life of cities and the biological, the biosystems. And that is something we must work on. So the challenge I pose to my working party in London is we now know a good diet is low carbon and healthy, but what is a good diet for biodiversity? Then we go rather vague. We don't have good indicators. We don't have good methods. So it's something that I think we need to be, as academics, I speak to my fellow academics, we need to start working on the possibilities of what we academics call a multi-criteria approach. A multi-criteria approach is saying a good food system isn't cheap food or local food or low carbon food. It is a set of criteria which we need to be overt about. And that's what I think cities can help pioneer. A new set of criteria for what is a good food system. And I think that is beginning at the city level.
Thanks very much, Tim. And those of you who don't know Tim will have seen his passion and his willingness to have controversy and to challenge people. And that's exactly what we need if we want to have transformation. But I want to move on now and introduce Mirjana Gurinovic from the University of Belgrade in Serbia. And Mirjana is someone who has a medical background, but who's also passionate about nutrition and passionate about that regional level, about working with colleagues and making sure that the standards and their capacity is appropriate for the transforming European food systems. So Mirjana, if you could start to share your screen, please.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this panel session. It is my great honor and pleasure to be part of this EU think tank group and participate in this important project. I will present today some of the activities from my region, from Balkan region, related to the capacity development in nutrition. This network was established in 2005. That was encouraged to the formation of the network for the capacity development in nutrition in Central and Eastern Europe. The support was an initiation was from the United Nations University Food and Nutrition Program, UN Standing Committee of the Nutrition. And that was aimed to initiate and support food, nutrition, and capacity development activities in research and in training in this region. We know that capacity development in food and nutrition is not only formal training. It includes, of course, human resource development, organizational and institutional and legal framework development with the aim of enhancing knowledge and skills. It is a long and continuous process which gives primacy to the national priorities and needs and process. The main objective of this network was to stimulate the capacity development in food and nutrition in Central Eastern Europe, also to identify research infrastructure status and needs, to identify specific education and training needs, food system element status, and the established network with European countries, with partners in collaboration with EC project, international research project, UN organization, and networks. The network, CAP-NUTRA, was worked towards enhancement of individual, institutional, and organizational capacity in food and nutrition research, and identification of the challenges, what are the needs. We develop strategies, frameworks for planning guidelines in capacity development in this region. Today, we had a really lot of activities from 2005 until now. We were very active, and the summary of all our capacity development activities we published this year in food policy paper. But now, today, I will focus my presentation related to the research infrastructure development in Balkan region. As we know that accurate dietary intake assessment at individual and population level, dietary surveys and nutrition surveillance system requires harmonized methodology and validated nutritional tools. Of course, research infrastructure and capacity development are essential for public health nutrition and research in nutrition epidemiology. Based on our inventory and identification of the status of research infrastructure, we identified that in this region, we are lack of we are lacking and there are gaps in research infrastructure, particularly in food composition database, database management, dietary assessment tools, and lack of standardized dietary intake data. Institute for Medical Research, my Center of Research Excellence in Nutrition and Metabolism, where I am working, and the CapNutra network for Central Eastern Europe, through several EU projects, for example, EuroFIR, EuroFIR Nexus, Eureka, Chance, 4 EFSA projects, and with support from our regional office for Europe and Central Asia, works towards development of food and health research infrastructure in this region. Specific focus we had on development of food composition database and the harmonized tool for food consumption collection and dietary intake assessment, which are linked and according to the European standards. We publish all these papers about our work. 2005, we became member of EuroFIR project, FP6 Network of Excellence. That was the start of our work in building research infrastructure. In 2007, we created the first online Serbian food composition database according to EuroFIR standards. You can see on the left side. But before that, how we can do that, we built first the food composition data management web application, which are according to the technical annex of EuroFIR standards. We have multidisciplinary team with IT researcher, with many nutritionists and person involved in our network and the center. So we were working on indexing, Foodex2, lingual coding, etc., the updating, and that was huge work all these years. But starting with 2007, we built the first Serbian online food composition database. Later on, we became the partner in another EU project, EuroFIR Nexus. Then we were responsible to create the Balkan food platform and starting with our regional food composition database. That was challenging for us, but we worked continually on this. With Eureka project, we will work more on nutrient, especially micronutrient recommendation, identification also about the dietary surveys and the dietary intake assessment. Finally, all this year, we were created and working very hard on developing the diet assess plan. So one of the fundamental research infrastructure which is innovative new technology tool is Diet Assess Plan, which is a software web application platform for food consumption data collection, comprehensive dietary intake assessment, and nutrition planning. This is online and application for 24-hour recall, FFQ, FPQ, evidence and evaluation. Of course, I did not show all the function of this software just mentioned because we publish all the details in the paper, and this tool was actually one of the conditions how we can do dietary survey in Serbia and in the region. In 2017, we applied for the EFSA project support to national dietary surveys in EU menu according to EU menu methodology, and this DAP Diet Assess Plan software platform was implemented in Balkan region. Nowadays, we have ongoing surveys in Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, and North Macedonia in children and adult population. This is really the biggest and great achievement of our all research infrastructure development. Without all this previous work from 2006, that this will be not possible to participate in this EFSA project and have details about the dietary intake. So in conclusions, we can say that our work, network and institute and center delivered impressive work in food and nutrition and capacity development research in the field of public health nutrition. We developed great research infrastructure Especially the biggest achievement was regional harmonization in methodology in food consumption and dietary intake assessment for evidence-based policy making in Serbia and Balkan region. How we achieve this? So active participation in EC research project in cooperation with other European partners, institutions, enhanced nutritional training, exchange of information, knowledge transfer, and regional capacity in food and nutrition public health research. Of course, we can say at the end that capacity development, as I presented, can stimulate also and contribute to food system transformation in Balkan region, because without this data, we cannot do further transformation of food system. This was short presentation, but we had many other activities and results in capacity development in our region, and this was published in food policy paper. You can see down. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mirjana. And it's great to hear about harmonization, and you've also reminded us about the need to build on strong standards, quality standards, having the data, the composition of diets and the surveys of what people are actually eating. I think that's great. Excellent. If you could stop sharing your screen.
Yes, yes, thank you.
With questions afterwards. So I think you see the sort of quality of people that we have on the think tank, and indeed to introduce our final panelist, Gerda, sorry, my pronunciation, I'm still practicing on it. Verburg is the UN Assistant Secretary General and coordinator of the Sun Movement. I'm sure everyone knows, but the Sun Movement, scaling up nutrition, absolutely vital part of the research landscape in order to get that scaling up and the real impact and the transformation at the global level. So over to Gerda.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Indeed, we are working with 62 member countries all over the world who have committed to take on board the responsibility to improve nutrition. And as we all know, nutrition is a multi-sectoral approach, not only health, but also food, social systems, etc. So what are, from my perspective, the challenges at the international level? First, of course, the agreement about standards on food safety and nutrition and diets, what it means, but then very rapidly going through to the national and subnational level at country level. Because concrete solutions can only grow bottom up and cannot be dropped from the global level. Let me take the example of the food systems as we have right now. Tim has told already what is happening in London, but it's happening worldwide. Our current food system is destroying people's health, and the COVID-19 crisis is emphasizing this. It is bankrupting our health systems because more and more illnesses and diseases are food related or diet related, and it is it's exhausting our planet. So to find solutions for society, for people and planet alike, we need to rethink and do something about food systems. And this is part and parcel of the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals that were agreed upon by all UN organizations in 2015. And it will be the topic of a food system summit next year, hosted by the Secretary General. What does it require from science, knowledge and research? It requires no more and no less than a paradigm shift, a behavior change in how to approach and how to deliver science and know-how. From leading, because everybody will agree that solutions need to be science-based, but it's not science that will take the lead. It is serving, sorting out what is the question. It is not drafting reports because reports will not solve the problem. It is listening. It is understanding the political economy. because more reports will not solve the problem. This is a systems failure in science so far, that if you want to really support change in food systems for the better, to serve people and planet alike, you need to rethink the whole systems of science and research. How? Let me just put a few things forward, not to dig it out into depth, but read the Fit for Food reports. Have the diagnosis of what is happening in a multi-sectoral way, not only the scientific way. Bring all the stakeholders on board, not only the multi-sectoral, but also the society people. Think about finding win-wins. Everybody needs to win in finding new solutions. Otherwise, if one runs with a win, the other will stop investing in it. Understand the political economy. So have your dialogue with political advisors and a political decision making, so that you're really on the same page and you can serve and dedicate to be part of the solution to a real question. Be convincing in your narrative, and then talk in language, communicate in language that is understandable for everyone and not only for academics, because then you start to talk secret language and it will not help you and it will not help others. Be ready to combine research with local wisdom and generation wisdom, because only then you will be able to enter the cultural process. So also indigenous wisdom should be recognized. Implementation of your findings should be done shoulder to shoulder. And to do this, it is necessary to rethink the financing of research and to use the current investments and subsidies in food production to rethink the whole process and to create incentives for researchers to do the outcomes of the research and implement them shoulder to shoulder with the users, the end users, in order to bring potential solutions to scale. Why is this necessary? Because otherwise I am afraid that science will be considered too soon, and it will be very sad that scientific opinions and knowledge will be considered as just another opinion. This is the time, the scene of the time that we are in right now. I cannot help it, but I think it is the right moment for science and research to rethink their way of doing and to be part and parcel of finding excellent and inspiring solutions, both for human beings and for our planet. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. And another stimulating call to change, for change that we heard there from Gerda. I want to just pick up on language, and I would agree that language and being able to communicate science, have that interaction with people who haven't been trained as scientists is key. Tim, perhaps you would like to pick up on that and say how you reach out to people, the people of London, because the people of London are a very a sort of microcosm, if you like, of the people of the world, of different cultures, different backgrounds, quite a wide diversity in terms of income. So how do you bring them on board? Just a short response in terms of that. And can I just urge everyone in the audience to feel free to put questions, comments in the chat. I see there's quite a lot of points coming in and raising and websites and drawing attention to various things. Please keep those coming. It's one of the big advantages of Zoom, the amount of participation that you can actually get. So keep those coming. Tim, a short response for you, and then I'll have questions for Mirjana and Gerda.
Well, I'm going to be brutally honest, Maggie, to your question. Cities have the same difficulties that other levels of governance have. National governments have more capacity to inject what they think and what they want, as we see in COVID-19, into the media than do cities. Cities have smaller budgets, they have smaller communications teams, smaller numbers of press officers, all the usual ways that messages are put out. But cities have the great advantage of identity. It's where people live. And that's rural areas as much as cities and towns. I'm meaning urban existence. So I'm, you announced me with my background as a social psychologist, Maggie. Here is where I find my 50 years ago PhD kicks in. I'm interested in the mass psychology of food more and more. What is it that motivates changes? How can we energize people to do things that they don't really want to do or think they don't want to do? Or how can we narrow the gap between the reality of where we are and the rhetoric of where people say they are? Study after study shows that city level people want to change, want to do the right thing, but actually they're not. I'm not doing it. My life is structured in a way that makes it hard. It's hard to live a low carbon lifestyle. Life is just structured in different ways. So I'm interested in giving us giving more attention in food policy onto that sort of cultural dimension, that mass psychological dimension. I don't think everything is reduced to that, not at all. But I think there is an element of change, of cultural excitement that in food we have not been part of. Food has been seen as health messages that are about what is good for you, and so you get resistance. Gerda and I would know that. In nutrition, we have that all the time. She's smiling. We know this. Doctors tell you to eat a diet, eat 7 fruits and vegetables a day, but we don't do it. So bridging the gap, and that cities, I think, have a possibility to do that. I give one example and stop.
Sorry, can I just say, sorry, Tim.
The London Olympics in 2012 was the huge gathering. The City Council, the Food Policy Council of London that I was on, negotiated that only sustainably sourced fish could be presented in the Olympics. So we had to negotiate with McDonald's, the biggest catering companies of the world. We had that leverage at the city level. It changed what happened without people knowing it.
Thanks, Tim. I'm sorry to rush you, but I'm told we only have 2 minutes left. And so I want to just give a final word. Mirjana, any thoughts from what you've heard from the others and what we heard before, just in 2 minutes, 1 minute, and then give Gerda 1 minute. You're on mute.
Our experience in Balkan and results what we achieved can be transferred and to other region if there is any necessary for building this kind of the research infrastructure. And also I have message related to the education and in food system modules developing for our region or because without good professionals we are not able to expect some movement in transformation of food system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I would like to take over immediately, otherwise I'm losing time. I think Tim is too pessimistic. I think that many big cities are really bringing change in infrastructure, in energy, in public transport, in behavior, in education, on lifestyle. And my strong plea is make use of the rural area to source and to also take the rural area that is supporting your big city in delivering healthy and nutritious food to develop them. Because I do think that London has a problem, but in the Milan Charter, there are many cities. Think about the Scandinavian cities, but let me also be a little bit proud of Amsterdam in my home country.